Drake London. Here's everything you need to know about him going into the 2026 and beyond season. Let's start with the bad. I have written out here Tua. Now, I'm going to talk about the entire quarterback situation as a whole at the Falcons, being two players, Tua and Michael Penix, which I've written on the pro, and Tua in the con. So, let's say that Tua wins the starting job and he is the Falcons quarterback for the 2026 season. In my opinion, that is absolute doomsday, alarm bells going off, and everything for Drake London. If I'm a Drake London owner, and if you are a Drake London owner, you better hope to hell that Tua does not win the starting job. Now, he's a fine backup. I think he is an above-average backup if he does assume that role. But he damn sure ain't a starter anymore. Coming from watching the Dolphins, every single game, I will tell you what is in fact wrong with Tua. Tua has CTE, and I'm not joking about this. I know it is sort of a meme disease that a lot of people joke about. This is not funny in the slightest. This dude has CTE, and it hasn't affected his character, as I said in the last video. He's not a knucklehead because of it. He is just getting worse and worse and worse at processing the game of football. And CTE slows the brain down, and the quarterback is probably the quickest thinking position that you gotta have the best brain to be a quarterback. It's gotta be working on all four cylinders if you want to be a quick thinking quarterback. It's a very cerebral position in the game of football. And Tua, every hit, just loses 10-20% of his brain cells, and it is just slowly chipping away at his overall cognitive abilities. And quite frankly, I think he's already toast. I think he's 2 concussions already past where he should have been retired from. Watching the quarterbacks, it was like putting Joe Biden out there. It was just mean. It's just not something you ever want to see. The Miami Dolphins threw him out there for the season, and he didn't get hit in the head too much, but the damage is already done. And he is just not processing the game. It just doesn't come to him quick. And it's kind of like a dementia patient. He remembers some things. It's like he'll remember some of these old plays, and he'll just chuck it downfield thinking Tyreek Hill is still there, and he's not. And I think originally that's the only reason why Tua worked as a quarterback for the Dolphins. Tua, in my opinion, is a timing quarterback, meaning he's throwing to a position, not a player. He is just expecting a player to be there, but he may not be actively throwing to where a player is at that moment. It's just the way they wanted it down in Miami is get the ball out of his hands quick and have a player meet the ball at the spot where Tua was placing it. And I think the CTE got to him because he was just placing balls where no one was even near. And very concerning. What I saw from him scares me, and that's the bottom line. And what little skill he does have is left as being, a good timing quarterback. He's lost all of his arm strength. He's lost all of his ability to, play quarterback on the fly, to process something. If the play falls apart, oh, God forbid, it's not going to look good for Tua. You place him in the Falcons offense, and I don't see anyone that fits his play style. Drake London, who the video is actually about, is not a timing receiver, in my opinion. Drake London is beat a man to a spot and just bully him, rise up, be the tallest man, jump up, high point a ball and bring it down. That's who Drake London is. He's not predicting where Tua's going to throw the ball. He's not that type of player. Tua's going to need to throw to Drake London, not to where Drake London will be. And quite frankly, I don't see it with Tua. I think putting Tua out there just absolutely lowers the ceiling of the Falcons completely. We saw it with Jalen Waddle. He got an ungodly amount of target share last season for the Dolphins. But he was never like a wide receiver one that you would really feel confident about. It's not because of Waddle, it's because of Tua. He's going to do a lot better on the Dolphins. I'm sorry. He's going to do a lot better on the Denver Broncos. Excuse me. All right, so we talked about Tua and why that's horrible for Drake London. Next up, the Falcons in general. Drake London is on the Falcons. That's a fact, and it's not good. The Falcons are just a poor organization so far from what I've seen. And I don't think they do anything to heighten Drake London or their other superstars. I think Drake London and Bijan Robinson are good because they're good players. The organization has done diddly squat for them, in my opinion. The Falcons this year are also not doing anything for Drake London. It's just one of those franchises that are just okay with mediocrity. And, hopefully London doesn't lose his head and wants out, because some players just want to win, and being on a team that is just okay with being the epitome of mediocrity, I don't see Drake London being happy for too much longer. But so far, he has been fed the ball a lot, and that keeps wide receivers' mouths shut. So we will see. But being on the Falcons does not do anything good for him. That organization scares me, quite honestly. The Falcons brought in Kevin Stefanski, another dumb Falcons move. How does this make them better? Who was their last coach? Raheem Morris, I believe. I could be way off, but I think that's who their last coach was. It was not good. There were many times where I was like, what the fuck are we doing? It didn't look like he knew exactly how to put his foot down as a coach. It almost looked like plays were just playing themselves. Kevin Stefanski coached the Browns, if I'm not mistaken. Also, a horrible team. And from what I've heard is that, quote-unquote, Kevin Stefanski is actually a good coach, they say. It's just the Browns were a bad organization, and he wasn't able to do anything with that. Well, I'll clap back on that. If Kevin Stefanski is a so-called good coach, then why were the Browns not a good team? I don't even think they showed signs of life. Like, I don't see how you see that he was a good coach. I don't see it. So I am worried about Kevin Stefanski. I think he is one of those coaches that just somehow has a good resume. I don't know how, but he's living off his resume, not his actual production. This is a person who has not shown or earned his way into this coaching position. And I see another just mediocre Atlanta Falcons team. And it scares me. He's undervalued. This is nothing to Drake London, but I think dynasty and just fantasy owners in general don't realize how quality of an asset Drake London is. I personally, Drake London, I have him in my top 5 receivers. I think he's just out of the big 3, and we all know the big 3, being JSN, Chase, and Puka. You can't rank one of those 3 above another. They're just, you'd be happy with all 3 of them. And then you get a small tier break, I couldn't think of the word there, a small section of receivers below that, but whatever order you want to put after that, whether it be CD or whoever, I have Drake London in the top 5, whether he's 5 or 4. And half of that is off potential, half of that is off what he's already shown, but you have to, some of that is that I do believe in him, and some of that is his potential. But because he hasn't actually truly produced as a top 5 receiver so far in his career, he's undervalued. So if you are like me and see him as a top 5 receiver, you can go buy him for cheap. But the reason I put this as a con, if you have Drake London and some of these fears are getting to you so much that you want to sell him, well, I don't think people are going to value him as high as an owner of London himself would value him. So you're really not getting top 5 value in return, I think. I think a lot of people don't see the potential in Drake London. So selling him, you can sell him easily, trust me. People want him, but I don't think people see him as highly as he should be. So he's undervalued in the market. Frail, not a knock against him. He can't control it, but he did get injured quite a few times last season. And the PCL or something with the knee, I think it started with a P. I believe it was a PCL sprain. That scares the shit out of me because Ricky Pearsall had that and he was mysteriously out for the count for 10 weeks and still came back slow. I think that's one of the more scarier injuries because it zaps the athleticism out of you. From what I've seen, I've never had it, I'm not a doctor, but from my anecdotal evidence from Ricky Pearsall, it has zapped the athleticism out of him. And Drake London is a guy that does rely on athleticism as a big part of his game. So that injury scares me. Hopefully this long off-season period, he's really gentle with it and he comes back and he's fine. I mean, it's 80% probability that it's going to be no problem, but there is a slim chance that maybe he's not the same. That's all I'm going to say, and that is a fear of mine if I'm owning Drake London. He also just gets hurt sometimes. He had a shoulder injury, and it's almost because of his play style. He's such a physical receiver. He goes up and high points balls, and these defenders just crash into him when he's coming on the way down, and he can't land on his feet, and he just falls hard. And the poor dude just takes a battering every single game. I'm happy that he hasn't had too many of the concussions that I see from other bigger receivers that have the same play style. But just the injuries and the scares, every time he comes up and comes down with the ball, I hold my breath. Hopefully he can prove me wrong. Focal point. So he will be the focal point of the offense, which you may say, yes, that's a good thing. I have it written out as a con because who the fuck else are the defense, who the fuck else are the teams going to guard? They got rid of their second receiver, Darnell Mooney, who quite frankly was a horrible second receiver. But who did they replace him with? I don't even know. I think it might be Jahan Dotson. I believe that's who they brought in, but he is a wide receiver 3 at best. Who else do they have? Ray McLeod? Maybe? I don't even know. These are names you don't ever want to hear in the fantasy space. If you're talking about those guys, you need to rethink a couple decisions prior where you fucked up. I don't know who the Falcons think they are as just a plain football team, plain perspective-wise. Who do they think they are going into the next season trying to compete with the exact same roster but worse? I'm sorry, I just don't see it. Once again, that is why I believe they are such a poorly run organization. Being the focal point, I see him just getting double-teamed and smothered the entire time, which is not fun. So that does worry me. I don't I see the argument that it's less target competition. But he already didn't have target competition. He was still out-earning Darnell Mooney and whoever else they had. But Mooney at least stretched the field in just the slightest amount that took maybe just a little bit of pressure off London. Now, all that pressure will be on him, and I hate to see that for a receiver. I like offenses to be spread out with multiple weapons. I know it's contrary to fantasy, but this concerns me. Now on to the good. He is a young receiver. He's 24. He is just entering his prime, and he is a ripe old receiver, but I don't even think he's hit his ceiling. I think Drake London has one of the highest ceilings in the NFL. Now, is he going to hit that? It's going to be hard. There's a lot of puzzle pieces that have to click for Drake London to hit his actual ceiling. And I don't see it happening unless a miraculous turn of events happen. But if the puzzle pieces align, Drake London can be a top #1 guy receiver in the NFL. The keys to that may be Michael Penix. I'm not saying Michael Penix is a good quarterback by any stretch of the imagination. Believe me, that's not what I'm saying, but notice how I had Tua as a con and Penix as a pro. I will tell you why. Number one, Penix does not have CTE. His brain works, and he actually enjoys the game of football right now. Huge selling point for me. Penix is in love with Drake London. Penix does not look anywhere else besides Bijan Robinson and Drake London. And that is fantasy gold when you have when you have a quarterback who just focuses on one guy like that. It is so beautiful to watch. When it clicks, there were probably 2 to 3 games where Penix and Drake London and the offense just clicked. And I had such a smile on my face. I remember eating dinner at a restaurant and just watching. I thought I was having deja vu because they ran the same play 3 times. The Falcons went down the field at the 10 or so yard line, coming up trying to score a touchdown, and Drake London just does not even a good route. Like, honestly, Drake London just cuts to, I'm not even going to say he's a good route runner. London just cuts to the corner, a little 15-yard route, and Penix just lofts it up, and London brings it down and high points it because he's just a man among boys. And he caught those corner touchdowns like 3 times. And it was like the Falcons figured out that if they can get close to the red zone, which was difficult, quite frankly, that they can score every single time with Drake London. And they figured that out. And it is a beautiful thing to watch. However, just like everything, things fall apart, and Penix hurts himself, and Drake London hurts himself, and it goes to shit, and the Falcons do dumb things where they end up not even near the end zone at all throughout the game. That's something the Falcons would do. They'll have 30-point weeks, they'll have 0-point weeks, and it's very volatile, and I hate it, honestly. But Penix over Tua. If you were a London owner, you better hope to God Penix is the starter at the beginning of the season. I'm telling you, it's not going to be good for the Falcons, but you'll at least get one more year of fantasy relevance and maybe the cap off Drake London if Penix is the quarterback. No target competition. We talked about that. That is the opposite of the focal point. Now, he may be the focal point, but damn it, even if you put Tua in, hopefully he's not dumb enough to spread the ball out, and hopefully he does feed London. It's just going to be a very inaccurate feeding of London. But that is a pro. You do have to consider that he is the only guy on offense. So, I mean, if he's healthy and out there, he's going to be given an opportunity. Drake London is a freak. No, I wrote a freak with skills, matter of fact. He's a physical specimen, 6'4", 215. He might even be 220 with some of that offseason weight. Listen, that is a specimen. That is a man among boys. To be able to move as fluid as he does and to be able to jump like he does, quite frankly, it is a thing of beauty. I think he's a one-of-a-generation prospect. And I know all these things were said about him, but I am very, very, very high on Drake London. Simply, I know all these things were said before, but his physical talent, his physicals and his talent, matter of fact. His physicals are one thing, but there are other tall receivers. I mean, Jaden Higgins is tall, That's who we thought he would be, another Drake London. But I think we're finding out that Drake London is a alien of some sorts, and that you can't try to draft that next Drake London. I see in this year's draft Denzel Boston getting comped to Drake London. No. Don't comp him to Drake London. Comp him to Jaden Higgins first. And then we'll see if he can be Drake London. Because there is no other Drake London. The only person who I see similarly, in a similar vein to Drake London, but even still they're very different, is T. Higgins. T. Higgins is that tall, but he's a little more lanky and slender, and not as much physical as London is. And the reason London is so good is he's a basketball player. He used to play for USC on the men's basketball team, believe it or not. And those jumping skills, the rebounding skills in basketball, listen, such an underrated translation to the NFL, or just football in general. I'm telling you, anybody who's played basketball knows how to high point a rebound can play at least average at receiver. And I think his basketball skills really translate over to his NFL on-the-field skills for Drake London. His physical, so we talked about his physical abilities and his skills. That's it. So his skills is the ability to actually have soft hands and bring the ball home. After the catch, he's not doing too much. But damn it, when he gets the ball, he's like an Alex Pierce plus, in my opinion. He's just getting long chunk yardage plays, and I love it. So, Drake London, you gotta love who he is, and you really gotta see through all the haters and actually see what Drake London puts on the table. Unguardable. So, I am worried about him being the focal point, as we spoke about previously. However, there is not a defender in the league that can guard Drake London. I'm sorry, and he proved everybody wrong at that game against Indianapolis. It might have been his 3-touchdown game. I do not remember. However, I do remember that Drake London was matched up with Sauce Gardner, who is supposedly like one of the top 5 corners in the NFL. Maybe? Shit, I didn't see it. I mean, no, okay, he is good. But Drake London cooked his ass bad. And I think that's a prime example of that. A freak specimen like London, offense beats defense 10 times out of 10. Sauce was just too tiny. And as good as Sauce is, you can't match up against a specimen, and you can't teach height. And I'm telling you, having that is such an advantage for Drake London. So, do not fear about a matchup. Drake London is matchup proof. Lefty QB. So, while Tua is a nightmare and Penix is the godsend for London's outlook this season, there is a positive to both. Drake London is a left-handed player, and he has 2 lefty quarterbacks. I don't know if the Falcons did that on purpose, but it actually does work out. With the way that a left-hand player has a dominant hand and wants to catch the ball, it's just these little nuances that you really wouldn't think of. But I think when a lefty quarterback is throwing the ball to a left-handed player, it's the correct side of the brain for these 2 players to be on the same resonance and wavelength. The way that either Penix or Tua is going to rotate the ball and the ball will be spiraling, that direction of rotation is different, and it almost comes at a different angle if you're lefty versus righty. And London, I think, plays so much better when a left-handed quarterback is throwing the ball. Kirk Cousins isn't shabby, but Drake London plays nowhere near as well. I think just the little nuance of Kirk being a right-handed player threw him off. It's scary, honestly. So, the left-handed quarterback situation, even if it does go back up, if it goes wrong and Tua is the quarterback, you can still sleep at night, knowing that they're both left-handed. So, in my opinion, that is something to not be overlooked. And last, but definitely not to be discounted, and definitely not least, Drake London is just a stand-up dude. He has a solid head on those shoulders. What do I mean by that? This guy is not a knucklehead. He's not a head case. He's not a lunatic. You can count on Drake London doing the responsible thing on the offseason. I don't lose sleep at night worrying about Drake London getting a DWI and flipping his car. I don't worry about him going 120 down the highway. I don't worry about Drake London, getting in a hit and run or beating his girlfriend to death or whatever these players do these days. I'm not concerned about that. And honestly, that goes a long way to not have a head case on your fantasy team. To just be able to know that, damn it, if they're not going to play well, it's going to be because of their play. It's not going to be because of some other, other distraction. And what I've seen so far holy stutter. What I've seen from Drake London so far through his interviews is a well-spoken young man that is a stand-up dude and I think appreciates where he's at. And I gotta love it. It makes it really easy to root for you, Drake. That's all I'm gonna say. Keep it up, man. So the verdict is a buy, keep, hold, whatever you want to call it. If you have him, keep him. If you don't have him, buy him low. I don't think your league mates would value him as highly as you would if you are in the market for Drake London. Just think of ceiling potential. This guy has the potential to hit huge. Now, it is a risk because it didn't pay off last year. And it's a gamble. Fantasy is a gambling game. But if I'm a betting man, the odds aren't always going to be 100%, but I'll take my chances on Drake London. All right, that's it.